All right, guys, it is time to get back in the groove of school. So we are starting this year by talking about our sign rules. And I know it's been a while since you've been in class and you've had actual instruction, but we are going to talk about our sign rules. And I have put reminders all through your assignments. There's that glare. I'm going to have to sit this up. Y'all have to bear with me. This is all new for all of us. I put reminders all through the Google Slides and things that I've created for you guys that I would highly suggest. There we go. I would highly suggest that you take notes with me so that you have them right in front of you and you don't have to keep flipping back and forth between slides. So with your sign rules, the first thing we're going to talk about is we are going to talk about adding and subtracting integers. Now, I love to change colors. That way you can kind of follow along where I am. So we're going to talk about adding and subtracting integers. So that's the first thing that we're going to talk about this week. So when you're talking about adding and subtracting integers, there are 3 questions that I want you to ask yourself. Okay? 3 questions. The first question. So there's 3 questions. Your first question that I want you to ask yourself. Can y'all see the green? Ooh, no, let's not do green. Erasing green. No green. Let's try this. Okay. The first question are both signs positive? That's the first question you're going to ask yourself. And I know there's a glare. I'll hold up the board a little bit. So are both signs positive? So by that, well, Miss Long, what do you mean are both signs positive? Well, I'm glad you asked. I mean, if I give you 4 plus 8, are both of these numbers positive? Is the 4 positive? Yes. When we don't see anything in front of it, then we can understand that there is an invisible positive sign out here. So the 4 is positive. So this one is positive. If we look at the 8, it's right behind the plus sign. So this tells me that this is positive. So they're both positive. If I say what's 10 plus 3? Again, the 10 is understood to be positive. So this is positive. And because this is behind the positive sign and there's nothing else there, then that means that this is positive. So that's the first question you're going to ask yourself. Are both signs positive? And in this case, here's your couple examples. Okay, so in this case, they are. This example, they are both positive. So if your answer is yes, if you can say yes, then you add the numbers and keep the positive sign for your answer. Okay, so if you can say yes to this question, then you add your numbers and you keep the positive sign for your answer. So in this case, since these are both positive, I'm going to add the 4 and the 8. So 4 plus 8 is 12, and I'm keeping it positive. You don't have to put the positive sign. If you just tell me 12, then I know you know that means positive. And in this case, since they're both positive, then I'm going to say, all right, 10 plus 3 is 13. So my answer is 13, okay? They're both positive, so I add the numbers, and I keep the positive sign for my answer, all right? So that's your first question. Now, your second question, you see the purple? Okay. The second question is, are both signs negative? Are both signs negative? Now, here's where you got to be careful, because there's a couple different ways that you can see a number as being negative. And this is where sometimes my students will get lost. And so we've got to make sure that that doesn't happen to you guys. Let's see if you can see this. So let's say that I give you -3. Can y'all see the pink? A little bit. So -3 minus 8. Now, if you look here, unlike up here where there was nothing, and I told you that meant positive, right here we have a negative sign. So this tells me that whatever's behind it is a negative number. So this is a negative number. Now, yes, I said -8. Yes, this is a subtraction sign, but it also tells me that whatever number is behind it is a negative number. So this is also a negative. So they are both negative numbers. Now, I know some teachers tell you to change this to a positive and put your negative. I'm not one of those teachers, because as you move up in math, you're not going to be doing that. You have to be able to recognize this as a -8. So I'm not one of those teachers that says, hey, flip, change, whatever. I can't even tell you what they say, okay? But these are both negatives. So this is one way you'll see it. Another way you'll see it is you could also see it written this way. Okay, this is what some teachers tell you to change this to. Either way, these are the exact same statement. They both tell me that both the 3 is negative and the 8 is negative. Doesn't matter which way you see it. They are both negative numbers. You've got to remember, either way, they're both negative. Okay? So just because you see a minus sign right here, that doesn't mean, hey, I'm subtracting. Not necessarily. You have to go with your sign rules. Okay? So right here, are both signs negative? That was the question I said you needed to ask yourself. In this case, they are. They are both negative. So if you can say yes, then you add the numbers and keep the negative sign. And I know we ran out of room. All right, I'm going to go down. I'm going to put my camera down a little bit. You keep the negative sign for your answer. Okay? So, if both signs are positive, you add and you keep the positive. If both signs are negative, you add and you keep the negative. So those are your first two questions that I told you we were going to ask about. So there's a third question that we're going to talk about, but I want everybody to pay attention to these first two, because for some reason we get lost. This one seems to be okay. Everybody knows how to add numbers if they're both positive. But this one right here gets a lot of people. If they're both negative, you still add them, but they have to keep the negative sign when you put your answer down. So these two you handle the same way, but this one has to keep the negative. Okay, so if you can say yes to the first two, where both of your signs are the same, whether they're both positive or they're both negative, then you add your numbers. And then you keep the sign that whatever you have here. Okay? So those are your first two questions. Now, we're going to start talking about the third question. Uh-oh. This board does not erase very good. Could be problems. We have to get some cleaner. Oof. My board's falling on me. All right. Now, the third question. So the first two questions dealt with the signs being the same. The third question. Are my signs different? Meaning, I have one positive number and one negative number. Okay. So that's my third and final question that we're going to talk about today. Are my signs different? Meaning I have one positive number and one negative number. So what does Miss Long mean? Well, this is what I mean. What if I give you this? What if I give you 12 minus 18? Okay, we talked about in the first part, there's an understood positive right here. So that means this 12 is a positive number. While this is a subtraction sign, it also tells me something about the number behind it. This is a negative 18. So my signs are different. I have one positive, I have one negative. So in this case, are my signs different? Well, yes, they are. So if you can say yes, if you can say yes, you subtract the numbers and you keep the sign of the larger number. Okay? So if you can say yes to this question where one is positive and one is negative, doesn't matter the order that they're in, then you subtract the numbers and you keep the sign of the larger number. So in this case, if I say, all right, so what's 18 minus 12? Well, 18 minus 12 is 6. Now, I've got to decide, is it positive or is it negative? Well, which one's bigger? Is 12 bigger or is 18 bigger? Well, I know, because I know how to count, that 18 is actually bigger than 12. What is my sign on 18? My sign on 18 is negative. So that means that my answer is negative 6. So that's one example. Let's look at another one. Let's say that I have negative 3 plus 10. All right, now I just flip-flop their order. So in this case, This one is my negative. This one is my positive. So I have one negative, one positive. So that brings into this question. So that means that I'm going to subtract. So if I do 10 minus 3, I get 7. Now, which one's bigger? Is 3 bigger or is 10 bigger? Well, because I know how to count, I know that 10 is actually bigger than 3. Well, 10 is positive. That means my 7 is positive. Do I have to put anything here? No, I can just leave it as 7. And that is the correct answer. So when you're dealing with your sign rules for adding and subtracting, those are the 3 questions you need to ask yourself. So question 1, are both of my numbers positive? If the answer is yes, you add them and you keep them positive. Second question, are both of my numbers negative? If the answer is yes, you add the numbers and you keep them negative. Third question, is one of my numbers positive and one of my numbers negative? If the answer is yes, you subtract the numbers and you keep the sign of the larger number. So those are the 3 questions that you need to get used to asking yourself when you're talking about sign rules. And guys, listen, sign rules are not going to go away. These are super, super important. Last year when we were in school, I had my students create some videos with each other with raps or songs or whatever about the sign rules. I'm going to give y'all that opportunity to do as extra credit if you would like to. You can create it. You can create a song of your own. You can create a Bitmoji with a song, whatever you want to do, but that would be extra credit for you to do. It's kind of like an enrichment activity. But these are very, very, very important for you to learn and to remember because they are not going away, and this is what's going to get you if you're not careful. All right, so this is today's lesson. Come back tomorrow. We'll be talking about multiplying and dividing. See you tomorrow. Bye, guys.